My worst paying job was $5 an hour at a fast food joint until I opened a gym. If I had calculated what I was paid per hour at that gym back in the day, it would have been pennies per hour. That's not an exaggeration. Two Brain helped me change it, thankfully. Keith, what's the lowest hourly rate you've ever worked for?
I believe it was 650 collecting golf balls at a golf range.
Kind of fun, but not a great rate. You beat that this
No,
month with an hourly rate, an effective hourly rate of $867 as a gym owner, correct?
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
That's the number. Yeah. So we're going to dig into that. I'm Mike Workington. This is Two Brain Radio. I'm here with Keith Yungel. Keith owns CrossFit Pauling in Pauling, New York, and that is just just north of the big city. He was our August leader for effective hourly rate, or EHR. Now, what is that? Divide your total pay, including all benefits from the business, by the number of hours you worked on or in the business. That's a big one because sometimes when you're working on the business at home on your cell phone, you don't count that, but that is work and that does count. The shortcut here, you can divide your income by 2,000 hours. That might not tell the whole tale if you're working more than 40 hours per week, or if your gym pays for your car, your cell phone, or any of the other stuff. The point, you can drive up your EHR by working fewer hours or by making more money. We're going to dig into Keith's big number, $867 per hour, find out how he did it, and we're going to help you increase your EHR as a gym owner. Keith, you ready to roll?
I am.
All right, here we go. Now, I understand that your EHR is tied to something that's kind of unsexy, but it's really, really important. Standard operating procedures. Tell me a little bit about how you operated before you had SOPs, roles and tasks and all that stuff. How were things back in the day when you first started?
Yeah. So I was just in the trap of doing everything on my own, right? So I had some group class coaches, but outside of that, I was cleaning the gym. I was, doing CSM work, even though I didn't really know what a CSM was at the time. I was doing kids programs, foundations, nutrition. I was basically doing everything.
Every hat.
Every hat. Yeah. So, so at the time, I just thought it was because I didn't trust other people to take on those roles. But really, it was because I just didn't know a system or have a system to teach other people how to do it.
Yeah. And, I was kind of the same way. And I held on to a lot of roles. And it wasn't because, part of it was like, oh, I can do it better than anyone else. That's a common one. But my real problem was I was scared to hire people and put the wrong people in the wrong spots and go through that whole hiring process. It felt like dating to me, and that scared me, right? I had trouble with it. A lot of gym owners have it, but we had the exact same history doing all the stuff. Your hourly rate back then, your effective hourly rate probably would have been pretty low, I'm guessing, given that you were cleaning and doing all the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't even tell you what it was because at the time I wasn't even really tracking my effective hourly rate, but I'll tell you, it was probably pretty low, right?
Yeah, because I'm sure you weren't working you weren't working 20 hours a week. You were probably working like 60, 70 or something just ridiculous.
I was putting in a ton of time.
Yeah,
Weekends, I didn't see my wife much. And
yeah, but change is possible, right? So you're here to tell us about that. So I want to know, how did you get out of the habit, pardon me, of getting sucked into those low value roles? Because it's so easy for us as gym owners and driven people to just grab everything and do it all. How did you stop doing that?
Basically it was a conversation with my mentor to start, right? It was a conversation with Sean. I had just joined Two Brain. I believe I was either still in on-ramp or just started growth.
When was
this? This was in 2020, so the beginning of 2020. So
we're talking Sean Ryder as well, correct?
Sean Ryder, and this is right in the middle or beginning of lockdown, pretty much, right? So, so it was a tough time. That's why I decided to join up with Two Brain. And so I'll never forget, I had this conversation with him and we were working on developing my nutrition program. And so he said, all right, great. Like, we have this down. Who's going to run it? I said, well, I am. And he's like, all right. So, do me a favor, ask yourself how much earnings you're going to take from this and how much time you're going to spend on this and how much you're really going to enjoy it. Right. Versus hiring somebody else to do it. How much would you pay them? How much time would it then take you? And how would you spend your time otherwise, right? In other places. So I did some math. Now, going back, this was a couple of years ago, but throwing round numbers, I think, I probably would have put $1,000 in my pocket if I ran the nutrition program on my own, right? So, but it probably would have taken me about 20 hours that month to run the nutrition program. So what is that? $50 an hour, right? Now I hired a coach to do it for 4 nights, but let's round to 50% just for easy math.
Sure.
So I paid them $500. I paid myself $500, but I really only spent 2 hours mentoring that individual, right? So now my effective hourly rate was $250. So I had 18 extra hours to play with, and I just started duplicating that process. So I just started writing more SOPs and passing along and hiring other coaches. So instead of me taking, once we did start opening again, instead of coaching the kids class, I hired a kids coach. Instead of doing a boot camp, I hired a coach to run the boot camp. So I just kept duplicating this process with all that extra time that I had in my hand.
So dare I say it, you started acting like an entrepreneur instead of an employee of a business, right? And that's
exactly.
Really, that's what we forget as gym owners, because we have all these skills, we do all these things. We don't act like entrepreneurs a lot of the time. We just start doing all the stuff rather than hiring people to do the stuff, because that's what entrepreneurs do. Like, Bill Gates does not build computers, and that whole thing, right? Like the idea of get someone to do the stuff. I'm going to ask you about your SOPs, but just for listeners, I'm just going to unpack a couple of things to bring you up to speed. There is an exact process to identifying the roles that need to get off your plate. Two Brain has laid it out. It's called climbing the value ladder. It involves math, and there's an exact process. Your mentor will take you through it, and you will look at all the roles you do, and you will look at how much you could hire someone to pay, or how much you have to pay someone to take those roles off your plate. Then you would look at how can I invest that time, exactly like Keith said, and you're going to pay for the cost of that role and more. Easy example, Keith started with nutrition. Easy example is cleaning. Cleaning costs $12-15 an hour or something like that. Takes most of us 5 or 6 hours a week or something like that. Do the math. If you can get rid of those hours for, let's say, $150 a week, could you take 6 hours to make more money? Yes, you could do that. As a gym owner, you could do that. And you keep doing this all the way up the chain until you are the CEO of a gym business where you're doing minimal work on certain things. Other people are doing the service delivery and so forth, and you're making some money off of it at every step. And the 4 nights model that Keith talked about is tied to the entrepreneurial concept. And what that is you get someone to work in your business and you pay them 44% of the revenue. That person drives and grows and is responsible for the program, but you get a cut as the business owner for providing the space, the equipment, the market, the internet, everything that goes along with that program. Again, all this is systemized in the Two Brain program, and we can teach you exactly how to do it. The key, though, Keith, is what you hinted at is SOPs, because what I did was when I tried to offload stuff, I just chucked it at a staff member, washed my hands of it, walked out the door, and it collapsed, and I was right back to vacuuming the floors. Tell me about SOPs, because it's boring and it sucks, but it works, and it's the foundation of a business. So how did you do it?
So I took templates from Two Brain. I can't say I recreated the wheel at all, but I wrote out every single detail to a T, like I was programming a robot.
Was that fun?
That would go into, no, not at all.
Was it worth it?
But it was, for me, it was during COVID, so I had a little bit of time. So, but even if you don't have the time, make the time to do that, and it's going to save you a ton of time down the road. And it was very, very well worth it. So yeah, just writing every little detail. And what I would do is I would write it out and then go do it, go do the job, go perform the role, and then fill in the gaps. I'd come back and find out what I missed in the details. So it took me a while in practice to figure out what to actually write in the SOPs. I would take things out, put things back in. So the first one that I really did was my nutrition SOP, and that was for my nutrition coach that I had hired, as the story I was talking about before. I actually started writing SOPs for positions I didn't even have yet. I didn't have a CSM, but I started writing an SOP for a CSM and how I would want that job to be performed. A step further, I did things that maybe I wasn't even doing, but how I would want them to be done if I actually had that time, right? If I can duplicate myself. So it was, some, painfully long hours of just sitting down and writing SOPs. But in the end, once you hand that to somebody and you go over it with them and you continue to, meet with that staff member and revisit until they have it down, and then they actually start to come back with their own ideas and fill in the gaps that maybe you missed that are going to make that role even more advantageous to your gym.
So tedious, boring. We give you the speed. Two Brain will provide you with a lot of templates that'll get a lot of it done for you. You just have to change
Absolutely.
the details, right? Where the music volume goes to 7 at your gym and mine it's 9 or something like that, or whatever. You can customize these templates. Still, I'm not going to lie, it's not fun, but the payoff is huge because you only have to do it that one time. You took it a step further and even got you future planned, right? Where you went to and took all these things and all these roles that could possibly exist. And I bet when you started, when you thought, okay, I need to offload something or hire, you just pulled out that thing from your pile and ran with it. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got,
yeah,
you've just greased the rails.
The toughest part was writing the SOPs. And then after that, it was simple. It was easy. And it just fell into place after that.
People out there are thinking for sure, I don't want to do this job, but I guarantee you listeners, if you do it, the payoff will be worth it, even though at the time you will hate your life. That's okay. We can make it faster by giving you those templates. Now, you talked a little bit about this. You've got everything dialed in. So you give it, you give this thing to a staff member, and it can be as simple as like Chris Cooper has the famous story about he forgot to tell his cleaner to put soap in the mop bucket, right? And it seems simple, but it's not, it isn't for everyone. So you put all these steps down. You did that, formalized it all, gave it to someone. Okay, so now tell me a little bit of how long does it take you to do this stuff? So when you say you're meeting with staff members to maintain your systems and optimize things, how many hours a month or a week does that take?
Depends on how many staff members you have and what roles you have, right? But I'd say, and again, depending on the role, you might meet with your cleaner, once a month for 30 minutes to just, and the first time it could take an hour. You're just walking the gym with them and showing them everything that they have to clean and how everything works, from where the water is going to come in, from how to clean up when you're done. And then pretty much the SOP is going to run itself, and you're just going to come in, you're going to audit that process, and then meet with your cleaner again, anytime that you feel that, anything is not going the way that you would like it to go, right? On the other hand, with your CSM, you're going to meet with a CSM much more often. So I'd say with a CSM, it's probably a couple of 30-minute meetings a month. So 30-minute bi-weekly meetings with your CSM. But again, it could be 15 minutes depending on the weeks. If everything's going smooth and everything's going great, I mean, it could just be a chat about life, so it's not going to end up being much about what's going on in the gym sometimes.
So the maintenance of this system, if I'm getting you here, is not that difficult. It can be at the beginning, there's a little bit of extra work where you have to dial in a couple of things, answer some extra questions, and maybe change a few things. But really, at the end of it, you're probably taking a few hours a month to probably maintain the whole system, depending on your staff size. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I'd say, let's just say an hour per staff member on average is going to take.
Per month. And that's a huge investment, because that allows you to step out of service delivery, allows the business, you essentially replicated yourself, and now you're able to move on to higher value roles. So what do you do with your time now?
I mainly work on affinity marketing and NSIs, and all those meetings. So I have 7 staff members, or six staff members that I spend, on average, probably about, for me at this point, it's probably about 45 minutes per staff member on average. So, it's probably about 5 hours a month meeting with my staff. And then a couple hours doing affinity marketing. Sometimes we'll step into an NSI if my CSM can't make it, or my GM can't make an appointment. And, I still do like to coach, right? So, I'll coach generally one class a week. Sometimes it's more like one class every 10 days. So I'm usually hitting about 10 hours a month when it's all said and done.
In total work.
In total work.
Yeah. You get to see your wife again.
Yeah, plenty. And I have 2 kids now, so I get to see them, a decent amount, as much as I really want to. So
yeah, that's nice. A bit different from the early days, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. It's it was late nights. I'd come home after coaching at 9 o'clock at night, and then I would still have calls to make, for lead nurturing, and wake up early the next day and just do it all over again.
And because you're a fitness guy, you know how to grind. We all do, and we make that mistake and we get stuck in it. Listeners, I'm going to give you a couple of acronyms. I'm going to tell you what they were and define a few things for you, what Keith just said. CSM is Client Success Manager. We've talked about that a few times. That is the person who makes sure your clients are staying in the business and they're happy. They're responsible for client happiness. It is a value. We'll call it a low value role, but that's just in terms of like the payment. It's not a $30 an hour role. It's something less than that, but it has huge rewards and it's highly important. So when we say low value, it doesn't mean it's not an important role. It just means that it's not doesn't generate as much revenue as, say, sales. Okay. So that's what that is. Client Success Manager, essential to your business. Affinity marketing, that is sales of a different sort. You're talking to people that are close to your business. So you're talking to your clients inside your business. Hey, do you have any friends and family that I can help further? Talking, outreaching, that kind of thing, as opposed to cold calling people or putting ads on Facebook. NSI is a no sweat intro. A no sweat intro is a consultative process where people come in, they book an appointment to see you. You ask them what problems are they having, then you solve them with your services. It is essentially a sales meeting, but we call it a free consultation or no sweat intro. What Keith is working on right now, the 3 things, he's the CEO and manager, right? Do you have a GM, Keith? I'll ask you that first.
I do. Yep.
Yeah. So you're the CEO. Yep. So you're working more closely with your GM who manages a ton of stuff that you don't have to deal with. So you've got CEO time, and you're doing marketing and sales, which are very high value roles because they bring in money for the business. All of that is huge. You went from cleaning to the highest level as a CEO in the gym, and you did that in two years and a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, about two to 2.5 years.
So it's possible. And you went from
well worth it.
Yeah. And you went from making a lower rate to $867 per hour because you're making a good wage and you're not working 75 hours a week, correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
So here's where we help somebody. Gym owners out there right now are listening and they are drowning in work. Someone out there asks you, how the hell do I start this process? What do you tell them? They want to be you, and they're you from 2 years ago. How did they get here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like you said, there's nothing sexy about it. It's just starting to find the right people is probably the toughest part, right? I think that's a whole other podcast. Finding the right people, right? And then, but really being prepared before you even find those people with the SOPs. Write out everything that you do in detail. Find the right person, delegate it, and don't just hand it off, right? And then just expect them to just follow, all the bullet points, right? Take a month, teach them, do the work with them. Take a month, give it to them completely, but mentor them through the process. And I say a month, but depending on the role, it could be a month to 2 months to 3 months, right? And then let them take that role and then just begin checking in with them once or twice a month, right? For 15 to 30 minutes, and just continue to audit that role or audit the SOP. Start out with something that you really do not enjoy, right? So it's something that is sucking the energy from you. Maybe you don't like coaching your kids program. Maybe you don't like, working on nutrition with people. Maybe you don't like cleaning your gym. Whatever it is that's sucking the energy out, start with those roles, because that's the type of those hours that you get back aren't just going to be hours. They're going to be energy hours.
We have a thing called the loves and loathes lists, and you can do that's another exercise our mentors will help people do. It's what do you like doing and what do you loathe? And if it's for me, Accounting stuff, I hate it. That would be something to offload, because not only is it going to save me time because I'm not good at it, it's going to save me energy, as you just explained. So listeners, what I'll get you to do, I'll challenge you to put down the mop and take some time to do the dirty work of writing out your roles and tasks. Do that. You only have to do it that one time. From there, you're going to have to hire. That's a whole, like Keith said, that's a whole different show. And we do have hiring shows in our archives that you can check out. Then the final step of that is not to just push the cart down the mountain and assume it will go all the way to the bottom without tipping over. You have to monitor the thing, but it doesn't take a ton of time. Once you start to systemize things and get the process down, it's going to go very smoothly. The final step there, one of your greatest hires, is going to be a general manager who's going to take care of most of that work for you. And you're just going to be the CEO who checks in on certain high-level things. You can do whatever you want, as much or as little as you want to do. And you get time to spend with your family. Keith, thank you so much for sharing this with everyone. It's a great story because I love hearing someone who did what I did back in the day and then fixed it in less than 2 years. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here.
That was EHR leader Keith Yungel on Two Brain Radio. Thanks for listening. Please hit subscribe on the way out wherever you're watching or listening this show.